There is a dangerous misconception that quietly follows millions of people into old age. It is the belief that weakness in the legs is simply an unavoidable part of getting older. Many seniors expect stiffness. They expect slower movement. They expect balance problems, fatigue, heaviness, or difficulty walking long distances. Over time, these symptoms become so normalized that people stop questioning them altogether. They adapt to them. They reduce activity. They sit more often. They avoid stairs. They shorten their walks. They stop traveling. Eventually, they begin structuring their entire lives around limitations they once believed were temporary. I'm Dr. Smith, Amsterdam. Today, we're talking about the 7 warning signs your legs are failing after 70. If this is your first time, please hit the like button so YouTube recommends this video to others who need it, and subscribe so you don't have to miss any of our videos. Now, let's proceed. But what many people fail to understand is that the body almost never collapses suddenly. Long before a major fall, long before severe disability, long before a cane, walker, hospitalization, or loss of independence, the body begins sending subtle distress signals. The problem is that these signals rarely arrive dramatically. They arrive quietly, gradually, and invisibly. A slight heaviness in the calves while walking through a grocery store. A burning sensation in the feet during the night. One leg swelling more than the other. A strange coldness in the toes that never seems to go away. Small things, easy things to dismiss. But beneath those symptoms, an entirely different process may already be unfolding. After the age of 70, several systems inside the body begin aging at the same time. The arteries slowly stiffen and lose elasticity. The muscles begin shrinking through a process known as sarcopenia. Tiny capillary networks, responsible for feeding nerves and tissues, begin deteriorating. The nervous system transmits signals more slowly. Joint structures lose stability. Even the body's balance mechanisms inside the brain and inner ear become less efficient. The frightening part is that these systems are all interconnected. Once one begins failing, the others often begin weakening faster. And nowhere is this more visible than in the legs. Your legs are not simply mechanical structures designed for walking. They are part of one of the most important circulatory systems in the human body. Every step you take activates large muscle groups in the calves and thighs that help pump blood back upward toward the heart. In fact, vascular specialists sometimes refer to the calf muscles as the body's second heart because of how critical they are for circulation. Without movement, blood begins stagnating downward under gravity. Fluid accumulates. Pressure builds inside the veins. Oxygen delivery decreases. Nerves begin struggling. Muscles fatigue faster. Healing slows. Stability weakens. This is why leg decline after 70 is never just about mobility. It affects independence, confidence, balance, circulation, endurance, sleep quality, cardiovascular health, and even cognitive function. Some studies have even found strong associations between walking speed and overall survival in older adults. In other words, the condition of your legs often reflects the condition of the body as a whole. Tonight, we are going to examine 7 warning signs that your legs may be failing after 70. Some of these signs are subtle, some are deeply misunderstood, and some may already be happening to you right now without you realizing how serious they can become if ignored. But perhaps the most important thing you will learn is this: the body whispers long before it screams, and the people who recognize the whispers early are often the ones who preserve their independence the longest. Warning sign number 1: heaviness in the legs while walking. One of the earliest and most commonly ignored warning signs begins with something so ordinary that many seniors never mention it to anyone. It starts during movement. Perhaps while walking through a supermarket, perhaps while taking out the trash, perhaps during an evening walk that once felt effortless. Suddenly, the the legs begin feeling unusually heavy. Not exactly painful at first, not sharp, not dramatic, just dense, tight, fatigued, almost as if the muscles are carrying far more weight than they should. Then something interesting happens. The moment the person stops walking and rests for several minutes, the sensation begins fading away. This pattern matters enormously because it often points toward one of the most important hidden problems affecting older adults: declining circulation inside the arteries supplying the legs. To understand why this happens, you first need to understand how much energy walking actually requires. Every time you take a step, the muscles inside the calves, thighs, and hips demand a rapid surge of oxygen-rich blood. Healthy arteries are designed to expand instantly under this demand, increasing blood delivery into working muscles. But after decades of inflammation, cholesterol buildup, vascular stiffening, high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking exposure, or simple aging itself, many arteries gradually lose this flexibility. Washington sign number 2. The burning pain that wakes you at night. For many seniors, this warning sign begins in complete darkness. Not while walking, not while exercising, not during physical activity at all. It happens while lying perfectly still. Usually sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning, a strange sensation suddenly pulls them awake. At first, it may feel like heat building deep inside the feet. Sometimes it feels like burning beneath the toes. Other times, it feels like pressure, tingling, throbbing, or a painful electrical sensation moving through the lower legs. Many people immediately assume they slept in the wrong position or irritated a nerve. But then something unusual happens. The discomfort begins improving the moment they sit upright or lower their feet toward the floor. That detail is critically important because in many cases, the body may actually be using gravity to rescue circulation that is beginning to fail during the night. And this is where things become deeply concerning. Most people believe circulation problems should hurt while moving, not while resting. But advanced vascular decline often behaves the opposite way. During the daytime, movement and gravity help push blood into the lower legs. The body compensates surprisingly well. But at night, everything changes. Blood pressure naturally drops during sleep. Heart rate slows. The circulatory system becomes less forceful. And when arteries are already narrowed from aging, plaque buildup, diabetes, inflammation, or long-term vascular damage, nighttime becomes the moment the weakness finally reveals itself. Tiny blood vessels feeding the feet and toes begin struggling to deliver enough oxygen to tissues that are already vulnerable. The nerves react first. Nerve tissue is extraordinarily sensitive to oxygen deprivation. Even small reductions in circulation can destabilize electrical signaling inside the nervous system. That is why many seniors describe nighttime symptoms using words like burning, stinging, crawling, tingling, buzzing, pins and needles, hot pressure. The frightening part is that many people spend months, sometimes years, treating the symptom while missing the actual problem underneath it. A 78-year-old woman named Evelyn believed her nighttime foot pain was caused by ordinary neuropathy. Every night, around 3 in the morning, burning sensations spread across her toes so intensely that she could no longer sleep lying flat. Without realizing why, she eventually started sleeping upright in a recliner because sitting helped reduce the discomfort. Over time, the skin on one toe slowly began darkening. When doctors finally examined her circulation, severe arterial insufficiency had already compromised blood flow to her foot. The body had been sending distress signals every single night. She simply misunderstood the language. What makes nighttime vascular pain particularly dangerous is that it often appears after the body has already been compensating for years. By the time pain begins occurring at rest, circulation may already be significantly reduced. In many vascular clinics, nighttime burning pain is considered a major progression warning because it suggests the tissues are struggling even when oxygen demand is low. And there is another hidden consequence many seniors never connect to circulation problems: poor healing. During sleep, the body performs enormous amounts of repair work. Muscle fibers recover, cells regenerate, inflammatory damage gets cleaned up, nerve tissue attempts repair. But all of those processes require oxygen-rich blood delivery. When circulation weakens severely enough, nighttime healing efficiency declines dramatically. Small cuts heal slower, skin becomes fragile, muscle recovery weakens. Even balance and walking endurance may begin deteriorating faster because the legs are no longer repairing properly overnight. Many seniors also notice subtle temperature changes during this stage. One foot may feel colder than the other beneath the blankets. Some people constantly rub their feet together, trying to create warmth. Others begin wearing thick socks to bed even during warm weather because their feet never seem comfortable anymore. This happens because blood is not only responsible for delivering oxygen, it also carries heat. Reduced circulation means reduced thermal regulation. And strangely enough, the body often develops coping behaviors before the person consciously understands what is happening. Some people begin dangling one foot off the bed during sleep. Others sleep sitting upright. Some wake up repeatedly to walk around the house because movement temporarily improves symptoms. These behaviors are not random. They are the nervous system instinctively searching for ways to improve circulation. But perhaps the most alarming part of all is this: many people experiencing nighttime burning pain still believe their legs are basically healthy. Because they can still walk, they can still move around, they can still function. What they fail to realize is that vascular decline does not usually begin with total immobility. The body compensates quietly for years before reaching a breaking point. And when that breaking point finally arrives, deterioration often accelerates rapidly, which leads directly into another warning sign many people overlook completely, until one day they notice something visually disturbing about their own legs. One leg suddenly looks different from the other. Warning sign number 3. When one leg starts changing before the other. One of the most dangerous mistakes seniors make is assuming that swelling in the legs is always harmless. Because after 70, many people expect occasional puffiness. They blame salt, hot weather, sitting too long, or simply poor circulation. And while mild swelling can sometimes be temporary, there is one detail that should never be ignored: when one leg begins looking noticeably different from the other. This is where the body often begins revealing that the problem is no longer just fatigue or aging. It may be structural failure inside the vascular system itself. For some people, the change begins subtly. One sock leaves a deeper mark around the ankle. One shoe suddenly feels tighter by evening. A pant leg fits differently on one side. At first, the difference is so small that most people barely notice it. But over time, the swelling slowly becomes more obvious. One calf appears rounder. One ankle loses its definition. The skin may look tight or slightly shiny. Some seniors even describe the leg as feeling full, heavy, or strangely pressurized from the inside. What makes this symptom particularly important is that asymmetrical swelling often points toward a localized circulation problem rather than general aging. Inside the legs is a highly sophisticated network of veins responsible for carrying blood back upward toward the heart. Because blood must travel against gravity, The veins rely on tiny one-way valves that prevent blood from falling backward. Every time you walk, the calf muscles squeeze these veins like pumps, helping push blood upward through the legs. But after decades of wear, inactivity, inflammation, vascular damage, obesity, or prolonged sitting, these valves can begin weakening. And when they weaken, gravity starts winning. Blood begins pooling downward inside the lower leg instead of efficiently returning upward. Pressure builds inside the veins. The vessel walls stretch under the strain. Eventually, fluid begins leaking out into surrounding tissues. This is why swelling often becomes worse later in the day after hours of standing or sitting. But there is another reason asymmetrical swelling creates concern among vascular specialists. Sometimes it signals a blood clot developing deep inside the veins, and that possibility changes everything. A 72-year-old woman named Margaret first noticed swelling around her left ankle while sitting and knitting in the evenings. It didn't hurt much. The legs simply looked puffier than normal by nighttime. She assumed it was heat or aging. Over the following weeks, the swelling slowly climbed higher toward her calf, and the skin began appearing tight and glossy. Then one afternoon, she suddenly became short of breath while walking across her kitchen. In the emergency room, doctors discovered a clot inside the deep veins of her leg that had partially traveled toward her lungs. The swelling had been her body's only early warning sign. This is why persistent one-sided swelling should never be dismissed casually, especially when combined with symptoms like heaviness, warmth, tenderness, skin tightness, aching, visible veins, sudden fatigue in one leg, discoloration. And here is where the situation becomes even more fascinating. Many seniors do not realize how heavily the body depends on movement simply to maintain fluid balance inside the legs. The calf muscles are not only for walking. They function as active hydraulic pumps. Every step compresses veins and helps move blood upward against gravity. But when movement decreases, especially after retirement, circulation efficiency can decline surprisingly fast. Hours spent sitting in recliners, watching television, riding in cars, or remaining inactive allow fluid and blood to stagnate downward inside the lower extremities. Over time, pressure builds continuously inside the veins. The tissues become overloaded. Swelling gradually becomes chronic rather than temporary. And once chronic swelling begins, another dangerous process often follows: inflammation. The trapped fluid inside swollen tissues is not biologically harmless. It creates pressure around nerves, blood vessels, and skin structures. Oxygen delivery becomes less efficient. Waste products accumulate more easily. The skin stretches and weakens. Even minor scratches may begin healing slower because the tissue environment itself is becoming compromised. Some seniors begin noticing that swollen legs feel strangely exhausted by evening, almost as if the tissues themselves are under stress. Others notice increasing tightness around the calves while walking. Some experience itching, pressure, or dull, aching sensations that seem impossible to explain. Then, eventually, the skin itself begins changing. And this next warning sign is one of the clearest visual clues that the circulation system has been struggling for much longer than most people realize. Because the body literally starts leaving iron stains beneath the skin. Warning sign number 4. The darkening skin around the ankles. For many seniors, this warning sign begins as what looks like a harmless discoloration near the lower legs, a faint brown patch near the ankle, tiny reddish freckles around the shin, slight purple staining above the foot. At first, most people assume it is dry skin, aging spots, bruising, or changes related to sun exposure. But over time, the discoloration slowly spreads. The skin becomes darker, thicker, and sometimes strangely shiny. In some cases, it begins looking almost rusty, as though the lower legs have been stained from the inside. What makes this symptom so important is that the color change is often not happening on the surface. It is happening beneath the skin. And in many older adults, it signals long-term vascular pressure that has already been damaging the tissue for years. To understand why this happens, you first need to understand what prolonged venous congestion actually does inside the body. When circulation weakens and blood begins pooling inside the veins of the lower legs, pressure builds continuously inside tiny capillaries near the skin surface. At first, the body compensates, but eventually, the pressure becomes so intense that microscopic blood cells begin leaking through weakened vessel walls into surrounding tissue. This is where the staining begins. Once outside the bloodstream, those escaped red blood cells break apart. Hemoglobin, the iron-rich substance inside blood, begins degrading beneath the skin. The body attempts to clean up the debris, but over time, iron deposits accumulate directly inside the tissue itself. That rusty brown color many seniors notice around the ankles is often the visible evidence of chronic blood leakage occurring beneath the surface for months or even years. In vascular medicine, this process is sometimes associated with chronic venous insufficiency, a condition where the veins struggle to move blood effectively upward against gravity. The frightening part is that many people interpret the skin discoloration as cosmetic, when in reality, the tissue may already be under significant stress, and the skin itself begins changing because of it. Healthy skin depends on constant oxygen delivery, nutrient exchange, and waste removal. But when circulation becomes sluggish, the tissue environment deteriorates slowly. The skin may begin feeling itchy, leathery, tight, dry, fragile, unusually sensitive. Some people notice the lower legs becoming harder in texture, almost as if the tissue underneath is stiffening. Others experience persistent irritation that no lotion seems to fix. This happens because chronic inflammation gradually damages collagen structures beneath the skin, while poor circulation interferes with normal repair processes. A 71-year-old retired truck driver named Raymond noticed dark discoloration developing around both ankles for nearly 3 years. Because the patches did not hurt, he ignored them completely. He assumed they were age spots caused by years of working outdoors. Then, one afternoon, he accidentally scraped his shin against the corner of a dishwasher door. The cut seemed tiny at first, but weeks later, it still had not healed. Instead, the wound slowly expanded into a painful open sore that repeatedly leaked fluid. Doctors later explained that the surrounding tissue had already been severely compromised by long-term venous disease before the injury ever occurred. This is one of the hidden dangers of chronic skin discoloration in the legs. The tissue often becomes weaker long before people realize it, and once healing capacity declines, even small injuries can become serious. Many seniors also begin noticing another strange change during this stage. The skin near the ankles may appear unnaturally glossy or stretched, especially by evening. Socks leave deeper indentations. The lower legs may feel hot after standing for long periods, then ache later at night. Some people even notice tiny visible veins spreading outward near the surface of the skin, like branching blue lines. But perhaps the most overlooked symptom is itching. Persistent itching around the lower legs is frequently dismissed as dry skin, allergies, detergent irritation, or eczema. Yet in many seniors, the itching is actually being triggered by inflammation and vascular congestion developing beneath the tissue itself. The body is responding to chronic fluid accumulation and microscopic leakage occurring around the blood vessels. And unfortunately, once this stage progresses far enough, the skin can eventually begin breaking down entirely. Open ulcers may form near the ankles. Healing becomes painfully slow. Infection risk increases dramatically because poor circulation interferes with immune defense inside the tissue. Some wounds persist for months because the body simply cannot deliver enough oxygen to repair them properly. What makes this especially dangerous is that the process usually develops gradually enough for people to normalize it. They adapt to the discoloration. They stop paying attention to the swelling. They wear longer socks or pants and avoid looking closely at their legs altogether. Meanwhile, the vascular system continues weakening quietly underneath. And then another strange transformation often begins appearing, one that many seniors find oddly convenient at first. The hair on the legs slowly starts disappearing. Warning sign number 5. The shiny, hairless legs most people ignore. At first, many seniors actually welcome this change. Men who once had thick hair on their lower legs suddenly notice their shins becoming smooth. Women realize they barely need to shave anymore. The skin begins looking cleaner, softer, almost polished in appearance. Some people even joke about it. They assume it is simply another harmless part of aging. But in vascular medicine, hair loss on the lower legs can sometimes signal something far more concerning happening underneath the skin. Because hair follicles are not passive structures, they are biologically active tissue that depends heavily on healthy blood supply. Every hair follicle on your legs is connected to a microscopic network of capillaries responsible for delivering oxygen and nutrients directly into the skin. Under healthy conditions, this circulation system constantly feeds the tissue, supports skin repair, regulates temperature, and maintains normal cellular activity. But when blood flow begins declining over time, the body enters survival mode. And this is where things become deeply revealing. The body always prioritizes critical organs first. The brain, heart, and major muscles receive circulation before less essential structures. As vascular efficiency declines, the body begins reducing support to tissues considered non-essential for immediate survival. Hair follicles are often among the first structures sacrificed. The tiny capillaries feeding them begin shrinking and disappearing. Oxygen delivery weakens. The follicles gradually atrophy. Hair growth slows, then stops entirely. Eventually, the skin becomes smooth, shiny, and unusually reflective because the normal texture and oil-producing activity inside the tissue have also begun deteriorating. This is why some seniors develop what vascular specialists sometimes describe as glassy or polished lower legs. The skin no longer looks biologically active. It begins looking thin, tight, and almost artificial in texture. But the cosmetic change is only part of the story, because the same circulation decline affecting the hair follicles is often affecting everything else nearby too. Nerves, muscles, connective tissue, skin healing, temperature regulation, cellular repair. In many cases, shiny, hairless skin represents a visible clue that circulation problems have existed silently for much longer than the person realizes. A 75-year-old retired teacher named George thought losing the hair on his lower legs was simply part of aging. He joked that he no longer needed to worry about long hairs catching on his socks. What he didn't realize was that the disappearance had happened because blood flow to the skin had already declined significantly over several years. During a routine examination, his physician attempted to feel the pulses near his feet and found them barely detectable. Further testing revealed advanced peripheral artery disease that had already reduced circulation throughout both lower legs long before severe pain ever appeared. This is one of the most deceptive aspects of vascular decline. Not everyone experiences dramatic symptoms immediately. Some people develop severe circulation problems silently. The body adapts slowly enough that the warning signs seem normal. Walking distance shrinks gradually. Recovery becomes slower. Skin changes appear subtle. Energy declines little by little. Meanwhile, the vascular system continues deteriorating underneath. And once circulation falls below a certain threshold, the skin itself begins becoming vulnerable. Many seniors with poor circulation notice that cuts or scratches on the legs heal unusually slowly. Bruises linger longer than expected. The skin tears more easily from minor bumps against furniture or door frames. Some people begin developing dry cracking around the ankles. No moisturizer seems capable of fixing completely. This happens because healthy skin requires continuous maintenance from the circulation system. Cells constantly regenerate. Collagen repairs itself. Tiny injuries get repaired automatically. But when oxygen delivery weakens, the tissue loses resilience. The skin becomes thin, fragile, and biologically stressed. Another fascinating clue often appears during this stage: temperature instability. Some seniors notice their legs feeling strangely cool even in warm environments. Others complain that their feet never seem comfortable no matter how many socks they wear. Because blood is responsible not only for oxygen transport, but also for heat distribution, declining circulation often creates abnormal temperature regulation long before more severe symptoms develop. And in some people, the difference becomes shockingly obvious. One foot suddenly feels much colder than the other. Not occasionally, constantly. And this next warning sign is one of the clearest indications that blood flow itself may already be significantly compromised deep inside the legs. Warning sign number 6. The cold foot that never warms up. There is a particular kind of coldness that many seniors eventually experience, and once it begins, they often describe it in almost identical ways. It is not the normal chill that comes from cold weather or air conditioning. It is deeper than that, stranger than that. It feels as though the cold is coming from inside the foot itself. Some people notice it while lying in bed at night. Others feel it while sitting quietly in a warm room. Even with thick socks, blankets, or house slippers, the foot never seems completely comfortable. It remains cold in a way that feels unnatural. For some seniors, only one foot is affected at first. One foot feels reasonably normal, while the other feels like ice. That asymmetry matters enormously, because in many cases, the body is revealing a major circulation imbalance long before a catastrophic event ever occurs. And this is where the situation becomes far more serious than most people realize. Your blood does far more than carry oxygen. It also carries heat. Every heartbeat pushes warm blood from the body's core outward into the arms, legs, feet, and skin. Healthy circulation maintains tissue temperature automatically, but when arteries narrow and blood delivery weakens, the tissues furthest away from the heart begin losing access to both oxygen and warmth simultaneously. The feet are especially vulnerable because they already sit at the extreme edge of the circulation system. Blood must travel an enormous distance downward against gravity before finally reaching the tiny arteries supplying the toes and skin. After 70, even moderate vascular narrowing can dramatically reduce efficiency by the time blood reaches these distant tissues. At first, the body compensates quietly. Blood vessels constrict and redirect flow strategically. The nervous system attempts to preserve core temperature. But eventually, the compensation begins failing. The tissues cool. The skin changes color. Nerves become unstable. Sensation becomes abnormal. And many seniors mistake all of it for simple aging, but there is something deeply unsettling about persistent coldness in one foot that many people never think about. Healthy tissue generates heat naturally. Muscles, nerves, and cells are constantly producing metabolic energy. A warm foot is usually a sign of active circulation and healthy tissue function. But when circulation weakens severely enough, the tissues begin losing the ability to maintain normal biological warmth altogether. In extreme cases, the foot essentially begins matching the surrounding room temperature because insufficient blood flow is reaching it. This phenomenon is sometimes described in vascular medicine as poikilothermia, when tissue loses its ability to regulate temperature properly. And the body often reveals this long before severe pain begins. A 79-year-old man named William constantly complained that his left foot felt freezing cold at night. He wore 2 pairs of socks even during warm weather and frequently pressed his foot against heating pads for relief. Because he also had mild diabetes, he assumed nerve damage was responsible. What he did not realize was that severe arterial narrowing had already reduced circulation dramatically into his lower leg. One evening, he accidentally burned his heel with a hot water bottle because the compromised circulation prevented his foot from sensing and dispersing heat normally. The injury became a slow-healing wound that took months to recover. This is one of the hidden dangers of chronic cold feet after 70. The issue is often not just discomfort. It may be tissue vulnerability. Reduced circulation affects every protective system inside the foot. Nerves lose sensitivity. Healing slows. Skin weakens. Pressure injuries become more dangerous. Even tiny cuts or blisters may struggle to repair themselves because oxygen delivery is insufficient. Many seniors also begin noticing color changes during this stage. The toes may appear pale when elevated, then reddish or purple after sitting downward. Some feet develop a faint bluish tint in cooler environments. Others look unusually pale beneath the nails. These color shifts happen because unstable circulation affects how much oxygen-rich blood is actually reaching the tissue at different times. And then, another strange behavior often appears. People begin unconsciously trying to restore circulation themselves. Some constantly rub their feet together beneath blankets. Others stand up repeatedly during the night to walk around, because movement temporarily improves warmth. Some sit with their legs hanging downward, because gravity helps pull more blood into the feet. Many never realize their body is instinctively compensating for failing circulation. But perhaps the most alarming part is what this symptom often predicts next. Because once circulation and nerve signaling both begin weakening together, balance and walking mechanics start deteriorating rapidly. The feet stop responding normally. Toe clearance weakens. Walking becomes unstable. Small stumbles begin happening more often. Rugs become dangerous. Curbs become risky. Hallways become fall hazards. And many seniors notice one strange clue before anything else. Their foot begins making a slapping sound against the floor when they walk. A sound that may indicate the nervous system itself is beginning to lose control of the leg. Warning sign number 7. The foot slap, the stumble, and the walking changes that should never be ignored. For many seniors, this warning sign begins with something so small and so oddly specific that it almost sounds insignificant when they first describe it. Their slipper keeps sliding off while walking, or their toe suddenly catches the edge of a rug, or they begin stumbling over tiny surfaces that never used to cause problems before. Sometimes family members notice it first, a strange slapping sound while the person walks down the hallway, a heavier step on one side, a subtle dragging motion in the foot. At first, the changes are inconsistent. Some days seem normal, other days feel awkward. Many seniors assume they are simply tired or distracted, but deep inside the body, something far more concerning may already be happening. Because walking is one of the most neurologically complex actions the human body performs. Every single step requires constant communication between the brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves, muscles, joints, balance systems, eyes, inner ears, and circulation networks simultaneously. The body must continuously calculate position, pressure, timing, stability, and force thousands of times per minute while moving. Most people never appreciate this complexity because healthy walking feels automatic, until it begins breaking down. One of the earliest signs that this communication system is weakening is something called foot drop or gait destabilization. In simple terms, the muscles responsible for lifting the front part of the foot begin losing strength, coordination, or neurological control. Instead of lifting smoothly during walking, the foot hangs slightly downward. The toes approach the ground too closely. To compensate, the person may unconsciously lift the knee higher while walking to avoid tripping. And eventually, the foot begins slapping against the floor. That sound matters, because it often signals that the body is losing the ability to control movement efficiently. To understand why this happens, you first need to understand the enormous amount of neurological activity required just to lift the foot during a step. Every time you walk, the brain sends electrical signals down through the spinal cord into peripheral nerves traveling through the legs. One particularly important nerve, known as the peroneal nerve, helps activate muscles along the front of the shin responsible for pulling the foot upward. But after 70, several dangerous processes can begin interfering with this pathway simultaneously. Reduced circulation can starve the nerves of oxygen. Spinal degeneration can compress nerve roots. Diabetes can damage nerve fibers. Chronic inflammation can weaken muscle response. Physical inactivity can accelerate muscular atrophy. Balance systems inside the brain may slow down. Reaction speed declines. And when these failures begin overlapping together, walking mechanics deteriorate rapidly. The frightening part is how subtly it often starts. Many seniors do not notice weakness first. They notice accidents, a missed stare, a stumble near a curb, a near fall in the bathroom, difficulty walking on uneven ground, trouble reacting quickly when balance shifts unexpectedly. Then slowly, fear enters the picture. The person becomes cautious. They begin walking slower. Their posture stiffens. Steps shorten. The body starts moving defensively rather than naturally. Ironically, this protective behavior can make balance even worse because the nervous system performs best during confident, fluid movement. A 76-year-old man named Robert first noticed something strange while walking through his kitchen. His left slipper kept flying off his foot unexpectedly. He laughed about it for months and assumed the slipper was worn out. Then, one afternoon, while entering a restaurant, the front of his shoe caught a tiny half-inch elevation in the sidewalk. Because his foot could not lift normally, he pitched forward violently and fractured his hip during the fall. During rehabilitation, doctors discovered advanced nerve dysfunction and circulation impairment had already been weakening the muscles controlling his foot for years before the accident occurred. And this is one of the harshest realities about leg failure after 70. The fall is often not the beginning of the problem. It is the final warning sign that many earlier signals were missed. Falls after 70 are extraordinarily dangerous, not simply because of broken bones, but because recovery becomes biologically harder with age. Muscles shrink rapidly during bed rest. Confidence collapses. Fear of movement develops. Walking patterns change permanently. Some seniors never fully regain the independence they had before a major fall. This is why subtle walking changes deserve serious attention long before catastrophic injuries occur. Some seniors also begin noticing profound fatigue while standing for long periods. Others feel unstable when turning quickly. Some notice difficulty walking in dark rooms because the body increasingly depends on visual input once balance systems weaken. Even seemingly harmless things, like needing to hold furniture while walking through the house, may reflect declining neuromuscular control underneath. And perhaps the most dangerous misconception of all is this. Many people believe walking problems are purely muscular. But in reality, walking is deeply connected to circulation, nerve health, brain function, reaction speed, joint stability, vision, and cardiovascular fitness simultaneously. A breakdown anywhere inside that system can destabilize movement entirely. By the time noticeable stumbling appears, the body may already be struggling across multiple biological systems at once, which is why protecting the legs after 70 is not simply about mobility. It is about protecting independence itself. Because once movement disappears, physical decline accelerates with frightening speed. Muscles weaken faster, circulation worsens, balance deteriorates further, endurance collapses, social isolation increases. The body enters a downward spiral that becomes harder to reverse every single month. But here is the hopeful part many seniors never hear. The body often begins recovering the moment movement, circulation, strength, and stability are intentionally rebuilt together. And understanding these warning signs early may be the difference between remaining independent for years or slowly surrendering mobility without ever realizing what was truly happening underneath the surface. How seniors can strengthen their legs and protect their mobility. The encouraging news is that the human body remains surprisingly adaptable even after 70. Many seniors assume weakness automatically becomes permanent with age, but modern research continues showing that circulation, muscle strength, balance, and mobility can still improve significantly when the body receives the right stimulation consistently. The key is understanding that the legs depend on movement for survival. Every step activates circulation. Every controlled movement stimulates nerves. Every muscle contraction helps pump blood upward against gravity. In many ways, movement itself becomes medicine for the aging body. One of the most important things seniors can do is walk daily, even if only for short distances at first. Consistency matters more than intensity. Gentle daily walking helps maintain circulation, preserve muscle fibers, stabilize balance systems, and support cardiovascular function simultaneously. Strength training also becomes critically important after 70. The body naturally loses muscle mass with age through a process called sarcopenia, but resistance exercises can slow this decline dramatically. Simple chair stands, controlled calf raises, supported squats, and light resistance band exercises can help reactivate muscles that have become weak from inactivity. Nutrition plays a major role as well. Many older adults do not consume enough protein to maintain healthy muscle tissue. Hydration is equally important because dehydration thickens the blood and reduces circulation efficiency throughout the body. Supporting vascular health through proper nutrition, blood pressure control, diabetes management, and smoking cessation can significantly reduce progression of circulatory decline. Balance training is another area many seniors overlook until after a fall occurs. But balance is trainable. Simple exercises like standing on one foot while holding support, slow heel-to-toe walking, and controlled leg strengthening can help the nervous system maintain coordination longer. Most importantly, do not ignore early warning signs. The body often gives subtle signals long before severe disability develops. The earlier circulation problems, weakness, swelling, nerve symptoms, or walking changes are addressed, the greater the chance of protecting long-term independence. Because healthy aging is not simply about living longer, It is about continuing to move, function, and live with freedom for as long as possible. If you found this video helpful, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here on Master of Anatomy, we break down the hidden warning signs of aging, circulation problems, mobility decline, nerve dysfunction, and senior health issues most people discover far too late. And if you know someone over 70 experiencing leg weakness, swelling, burning feet, balance problems, or walking changes, share this video with them. It may help them recognize warning signs before serious complications develop. Also, let me know down in the comments, which of these warning signs surprised you the most? This video is intended for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical diagnosis or personal medical advice. Symptoms involving circulation problems, weakness, swelling, numbness, pain, or mobility decline should always be evaluated by a qualified healthcare professional. Never ignore sudden worsening symptoms, severe pain, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, or signs of medical emergency. Always consult your physician before making major changes to exercise, supplements, medications, or treatment plans. Until then, see you on our next video.